So, chapter one is all about the essence of psychology, definitions, what are the goals of psychology, historical and major perspective in psychology, psychology in everyday lives, covered throughout this chapter. So, first off, let's define what psychology is. As you know, psychology is made up of two Greek words, psycho and logos. Psycho meaning mind, logos meaning study. So, psychology basically means study of the mind. So, psychology can be defined as a scientific study of human and animal behavioral and mental processes. Or, as it says here, psychology is a science concerned with the study of human and animal behavior with the application of its principle to human problems. Important terms in psychology are science, animals, and behaviors. So, before we go into the four goals of psychology, uh, so as we said, psychology is a scientific study of human or animal behavior or mental processes. So when you say a behavior or studying a behavior, there are two types of behaviors. Those are overt and covert. Covert. So overt behavior and covert behavior. Overt behaviors are uh, that are visible to the eye or observable behaviors such as writing, dancing, jumping, or walking, and covert behaviors are hidden or not visible. These are mental processes mainly, such as memory, learning, feeling, thinking, or attention, or etc. So, psychology has four goals. Uh, Goals of psychology are this explanation, description, prediction, and control. So you can say uh, DEPC, D for describing, E for explaining, P for predicting, C for controlling. So describing behavior. So the one of the uh, goal of psychology is description. So description is whenever a study is on particular on what are people doing. So it's focuses on what people are doing, and it comparisons from what is positive that people do and what is negative, what is right, what is wrong, what is good, or what is bad. So that is about description. So when it comes to the next one, explanation, explanation is all about why are they doing that specific thing. So it asks the question of why, when, how. So it justifies and it asks the questions of the particular things that people are doing in a particular situation. So it asks the question of why, when, and how in explanation. So the third one is predicting behavior. So predicting behavior, as the name implies, it is all about forecasting the future. So predicting is what will happen if I act this way. What happen if a certain people act in a certain way. So it's all about predicting the future. And the fourth one and the last one is controlling or changing. So control or change, or also known as influence, is all about what can I do to get them to stop doing it. So it's all about the control and the influence for a certain thing to happen. So what certain things should be done for something to be for there should be a change. So that's why it's called controlling or changing. So it's all about what can a certain person do to change a certain people's behavior or certain someone's behavior. So it could be like, for example, parents could uh, advise their children. They could punish their children the for their children to stop doing things that are bad or inappropriate things. So that is like control or influence or changing a certain behavior. So they are using punishment or social sanctions or taking away their phones for them to change their behavior and telling them that their behavior was bad and they should change it. So that is like control or influence. So uh, next up, we are going to look at the historic background in major perspectives in psychology. So, uh, psychology is said to be started in the world in the 1879 in Germany by a German scientist called Hermann Ebbinghaus. Uh, the root of contemporary psychology lies in philosophy and it lies in philosophy and physiology. Uh, Philosophers have long been fascinated with the metaphysical aspects of human nature. By the 19th century, many philosophers, the originator of contemporary psychology, were attempted to establish methods of measuring the relationship between mental reaction and physical stimuli impinging on the body. So, there are So before we get into all the structuralism, functionalism, behavioralism, and all of that, the school of thoughts of psychology, uh, the as we said uh, earlier, in the 1879 started the was the beginning of psychology in the world from German scientist called Hermann Ebbinghaus. So Hermann Ebbinghaus also said that psychology is long past or short history. So what he means by this is we have practiced psychology in the long past, even before the 1879. But after the 1879, which is 1879, is a really early days for a particular study to be started to be investigated and studied. That's why he said that it is short history because although we have the human being have used psychology, they have not started to study it as a profession until the 1879. That's why he said Herman said that psychology is a long past but a short history. So, when we come to the historical development of psychology, we see the school of thoughts of psychology. So, in the historical development of psychology, we see the first one is structuralism. So, the structuralism is formed. The founder of this school of thought was William Wundt in the 1832 up to 1920s, who for the first time established psychological laboratory in 1878 at Leipzig University. So he is which Leipzig University is in Germany, uh, and uh, William Wundt first established a psychological laboratory in the 1878 in Leipzig University. So structuralism is founded by William Wundt, and structuralism is all about the elements, the divisions, atomist, and introspections. The tool to see which introspection is the tool to see inside the human mind. So uh, this is William Wundt, and the school focus on inner portions, as I've said, the inner portions, covert behavior, especially the elements of mind and consciousness. So, as I've said, it focuses on elements and the covert behavior, inner portions of people, and the mind or the consciousness. It studies mental life by analyzing its elements, their properties, and the way they combine. So scientific inquiries go from part to the whole. So uh, in structuralism, the scientific inquiries go from part to a whole. So it begins from a small thing, and then by studying a lot of small things, goes to a whole and generalization. So one must begin with a basic element of total situation. So the method of inquiry used in the school of thought is known as introspection. As I've said, introspection. For example, observation by an individual of his own mental process helped by trained subjects under experimental conditions. So, introspection, as I've said before, is the tool to see inside a person's or human mind. So the contributions of structuralism is that the structuring is the first scientific study of psychology. So uh, that is one contribution because it is the first one. So the second one is functionalism. Functionalism was found by William James and John Dewey. So the two most of influential proponents of functionalism were William James and John Dewey. This is William and this is John. So uh, they thought to study the functions of behavior and mental processes, not merely their structures. So as unlike structuralism and in the previous one, the functionalisms is, as the name implies, is that William James and John Dewey focused on the behavior and the mental process, not on the structure of the behavior or the mental processes. So they emphasize on the study of mental operation in contrast to mental elements. So they were focused on the adjustments and adaptations. So several of the fittest. So they believed in the survival of the fittest as well. For the proponent of this school, psychology goals. Should study the goals, the purposes, and function of mind. So those are the main uh, the main prominence of the functionalism or school of thought of functionalism. So William James and John Dewey were concerned with why behaviors occur. So conscious mind has no permanent structure; it changes like flowing river. So the method used in the school of study of behavioralism or behavior are observation, experimentation, introspection, and armchair philosophizing. So the contributions of functionalism is that contribution of these schools includes the study of individual differences, which later on gave birth to psychometrics and IQ testing movements and current research of taking and problem solving. The third one of a school of thought of historical development of psychology is behaviorism, which behaviorism emerges of behaviorism early in the 20th century, which is very early, and in the form of movement by John B. Watson in America. One was one of the most important developments or developer in the history of the field of psychology. So by John B. Watson, which is this one, and the introspective uh, school rejected completely the introspective method of studying behavior and insisted that psychology experiments um, should be restricted to the study of observable behavior. So basically, it rejected the introspective methods of behavior and insisted that psychological experiments should be restricted to the study of observable behaviors. So behaviorists are purely environmentalists, or also known as empirists. For this school, all behaviors are viewed as overt responses elected by stimulus. So it is basic. It's a basic concept that the response is to stimulus. The theoretical goal of behaviors is the prediction and control of behavior. So the most theoretical goal of behaviorists, such as uh, John B. Watson, is to predict and control a behavior. So behaviorists did not reject the existence of mind and consciousness as critics have sometimes suggested. Rather, they viewed this concept as impossible to observe and contributing little to a scientific approach to psychology. So, behaviorists believe behavior is molded, modified by experience. So, by altering the environment, we change the behavior. So, their main belief is that old environmentalists or empirists are because they believe that the environment affects the human behavior. So uh, they believe that by changing the environment, they can change the behavior of human beings. So by altering the environment, they believe that they can change the behavior of human beings. The methods that are commonly used by behaviorists to study behavior includes experimentations, reinforcement techniques, and desensitizations technique. So the what can be the contributions of behavioralism? So the major contribution of behaviorism to the field of psychology includes learning should be observable, should be tested. What the learner does is more critical than what the teacher does. Feedback related to homework and examination is important for effective learning, with immediate feedback being more useful. So the major weakness of behaviorism is the major reason for its decline was its inability to cope with the complexity of human thoughts and language. So they only believed that because they believed in the environment, if they can change the environment, they can change behavior of human beings. They believe that only environment affects us or influences people's uh, ways of behavior. So because of that, they cannot cope with uh, other things that could influence the human behaviors. So because of that, they were taught to be unable to cope with complexity of human thought and language. So the fifth one is uh, so the fifth psychological historical development of school of thought of psychology is Gest- Gestalt psychology. Uh, yeah, Gestalt psychology. There's also psychological analysis. We will come to that next. So the Gestalt, the major prominent of this school of thought were Max Werner, Kurt Kofa, Wolfgang Kohlel. So these three people have are the prominence of the Gestalt psychology, which is all about perception and interpretations, which perception means interpretations of meaning. So the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. Unlike the previous one, uh, Gestalt states that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. So the advocates of this school view psychological functions as patterned whole, a totality of experience, or a Gestalt in German language. They oppose that atomist approach of structuralism and later behaviorists. So they argued that people perceive the world in whole. They emphasize our tendency to integrate piece of information into a meaningful whole. So Gestalt theory followed the basic principle that whole is greater than sum of its parts. In other words, the whole picture of car carried a different, altogether greater meaning than its individual components. So, for example, if we hold a paint of the Mona Lisa, if I show you some part of her hand, you might not know or have the meaning or thought of what it is or whose hand it is. But if I show you a big picture, a whole picture of Mona Lisa, you can understand that that is Mona Lisa and drawn by Da Vinci and all of that. So they stated that the whole is greater than sum of its parts. So in viewing the whole, a cognitive process takes place. The mind makes a leap from comprehending the parts to realizing the whole. So uh, when a teacher arranges problem to organize the elements of classroom exercises into meaningful in wholes inside, according to the school of thoughts, learning by understanding relationships and concepts in more forceful ways. The methods of school is objective and objective observations and reports for conscious experience rather than on careful controlled behavior. So, what are the contributions, as we said, of Gestalt psychology? So, the major contribution of this school is include teachers should present their subject matter in the classroom as a whole. Goals and purposes have an important place in learning. The interdisciplinary approach to education problem is important. So, hence, the teacher should start where the learner's perception are not where his or her own perception happen to be. So the fifth one, the last one of psychological school of thoughts in historical development of psychology is psychoanalysis. So psychoanalysis is all about the unconscious mind. So it was uh, originated by Sir Freud, uh, so were medical practice by Australian physician called Sir Freud. The dynamic of the mind with Freud's domain is that uh, people learn and work for sex. So that's why he stated. According to him, there are three qualities of mental processes, namely conscious, the phenomena we are aware of, which is the conscious mind, the phenomena that we are aware of, and the preconscious, which is the phenomena that we are less aware of, and the unconscious is which the phenomena that we are not aware of at all. So, uh, Freud emphasizes the human beings are controlled by not by rational and conscious processes, but rather by drives and urges of hidden within the unconscious mind. So the analysis of the unconscious dynamic process was major tenet of his school of thought. So the all about the unconscious mind was originated by on the psychological analysis of Sir Freud. These unconscious drives are, as I stated before, he said that people learn and work for sex. So the unconscious drives are sexual and threatening by nature. Methods of studying this unconscious mind of human beings include that the analysis of dreams, slips of tongue, and free associations. Freud argued that unpleasant experiences that are buried in the unconscious mind are the causes of mental illness. According to him, the individual is both animalistic and human, shaped by biological needs, sexual drives, and aggressive instincts. So, the two major contribution of this school of thoughts, which is the psychological analysis, is that the development of psychoanalytic method called the analysis of dreams and slips of tongue, as well as the free association for threatening mental disorder. So, and also the formulation of psychological analytic theory of personality development. So what we say by that is personality can be developed not only as stated in the by the environmentalists, which are the behavioralisms, that they say that only the environment affects the human behavior, which the psychoanalytics also stated that uh, not only that the environmentalist affects it, but the psychoanalytic theory said about personality development can also come from the unconscious mind as well. So the second thing that we are going to be discussing about is the humanistic psychology. The humanistic psychology is uh, the two major proponents of this school of thought. This is also a school of thought of psychology in the development in the late 20th century, which is a very early one. The humanistic psychology is the major true prominence of this is Abraham Maslow and Carl Rogers. This is Abraham and this is Carl. So the basic assumption of this school is the personal values, values, feelings, and thoughts that are legitimate and understandable factors in influencing a behavior. So it's all about the values, feelings, and thought of legitimate, understandable factors in um, human behavior. So hence the to understand the true behavior of an individual, we need to understand their values, feelings, and thought of the world. So advocates of this school of thought of the humanistic psychology understand um, seek to understand behavior subjectively in terms of its meaning to the individual. So according to the school of the humanistic psychology, people are free agents, or they have free will. They are conscious, they are creative, and with inner motivation to fulfill their potential. So the emphasis is that people are capable of choosing their life partner and of growing to greater maturity and fulfillment. The idea of the that behavior is governed either by unconscious drive and motives or external stimuli and words.